First story, The Thing Beneath Hollow Pines Playground. I grew up in Hollow Pines, a quiet town in Maine that never made it onto any map. The kind of place where everyone knew your name, and the biggest excitement was when the fair came to town every July. But what I'm about to tell you isn't about fireworks or summer parades. It's about something I saw one night when I was 16, something that still makes me wake up screaming. It started on a humid August evening. The cicadas were screaming in the trees, and the sunset painted the sky a blood-red hue. My mom had sent me to look for my little sister, Emily. She had gone out to play at the new playground they'd built at the edge of town, a place we all thought was cursed even before the slides were installed. People said the land used to be part of the old Hollow Pines orphanage, the one that burned down in the 70s. They said some of the kids were never found. By the time I got there, the sun was gone, and the streetlights flickered weakly against the creeping darkness. The swings moved slightly, though there was no wind. The whole place smelled faintly of smoke, like a campfire that had gone cold. "Emily!" I shouted. No answer. I walked deeper into the playground, past the jungle gym and toward the slide. That's when I heard it, a soft giggle. But it wasn't Emily's giggle. It was higher, sharper, almost like the sound of a rusty hinge. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. Then I saw her. Emily was standing at the base of the slide, her head tilted to the side in a way that didn't seem right. Her hair covered her face, and she wasn't moving. I ran toward her until I noticed something behind her. Something crouched under the slide, long limbs bent at unnatural angles, a face pale as bone with eyes so black they seemed to swallow the light. "Emily, run!" I screamed. But she didn't move. She whispered something instead. I couldn't hear it at first, so I stepped closer. And that's when I realized it wasn't my sister whispering. It was the thing. It spoke in a voice that sounded like dozens of children crying at once. It said my name. I don't remember running, but somehow I ended up back on the street. My hands were bleeding from where I'd fallen. My mom found me screaming on the porch. Emily was gone. The police searched for weeks, but they never found her. The slide was torn down a month later. But here's the part no one knows. A year after Emily disappeared, I went back. I don't know why. Guilt, maybe? Or maybe I just needed answers. The playground was abandoned by then, swallowed up by weeds. The slide was gone, but the patch of dirt where it had stood was darker, like it had been burned. I dug there. Not deep, just enough to see if there was anything left. I found bones, small ones, and next to them a fragment of melted plastic. It looked like part of the old orphanage's sign. Then I heard it again. A giggle. This time it came from behind me. When I turned around, I saw her. Emily. Only it wasn't really her. Her eyes were black, and her mouth was stretched too wide, smiling in a way no human should ever smile. She tilted her head just like before. "Come play," she whispered. I ran. I never went back. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind rattles my windows, I hear the swings creaking. And I hear that giggle, and I know she's still there, waiting for me to come back. Second story, Whispers Beneath the Playground. I never believed in ghosts. Not when I was a kid, not when I grew up, not even when my friends swore they heard footsteps in abandoned houses. But there was something about that playground on the edge of Ashford, Ohio, that changed me forever. It was a forgotten patch of land, surrounded by half-collapsed fences and towering oaks that clawed at the sky. The swings creaked in the wind even on still nights, and the rusted slide glimmered faintly under the streetlight, like it was wet with something darker than rain. I first heard the whispers on a September evening. I had been walking home from work, cutting across the lot because it saved me 10 minutes. The playground had been empty for decades. Everyone in town knew the story of the fire, though no one liked to talk about it. They said 10 children died there in the old rec center that used to stand behind the swings. 10 children whose names were etched into a memorial stone now cracked and half buried in weeds. That night, I stopped at the swings without knowing why. Maybe it was the soft hum in the air, like static before a storm. Maybe it was the faint giggle I thought I heard behind me. My phone screen flickered, dimmed, then died, even though I knew I'd charged it hours earlier. And then I heard it, the whisper. high-pitched, fragile, a child's voice. "Will you play with us?" I spun around. No one. Just the swings moving slightly, creaking in rhythm. I backed away, heart hammering, telling myself it was the wind. But as I turned to leave, another whisper slithered through the air. "Don't leave. Not yet." I ran home that night, but I couldn't shake it. The voice followed me into my dreams. Every night after, I'd hear faint laughter outside my window. My friends told me to stay away from that place, but I couldn't. Something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe something darker, pulled me back. The second time I went, I brought a flashlight. I thought I was prepared. I wasn't. The second I stepped into the playground, the air grew heavy, humid, though it was a cool October night. The merry-go-round spun slowly on its own. The beam of my flashlight caught small handprints smeared into the dirt, circling me. I told myself they were old, left by kids who trespassed here before me. But then one appeared fresh in front of me, as if pressed by invisible fingers. I heard giggles, plural this time. All around me. "Tag," a voice said. "You're it." Something cold touched my arm. I screamed and swung my flashlight wildly. Nothing, just shadows that seemed to stretch longer than they should have. I don't remember how long I stood frozen there. Minutes, hours. The whispers turned to crying, soft sobs overlapping. Then laughter again, shriller, like something was wrong. I felt a tug on my jacket and nearly fell. "Come to the slide," a voice pleaded. Against every instinct, I walked toward it. The slide was bent, warped from years of weather. Rust flaked off in the beam of my light. As I approached, I saw something carved into the metal. 10 go up. None come down. I wanted to leave. My body screamed at me to run, but my legs carried me to the ladder. As my hands gripped the cold metal, the whispers grew deafening. "Up, up, up!" I climbed. At the top, I expected to see the cracked ground below. Instead, there was darkness, a pit, yawning and endless, and faces. Pale faces of children staring up at me from the void. Their eyes were hollow, mouths stretched in silent screams. One reached for my ankle. I almost fell. "Play forever," they begged. I jumped back, tumbling down the slide, scraping my arms and legs. When I hit the ground, I ran. I didn't look back, but I could feel them behind me, tiny footsteps pattering in the dirt, giggles echoing in my ears. I never went back. I moved out of Ashford within weeks. But some nights, even in my new apartment miles away, I wake to the sound of swings creaking outside my window. And last night, for the first time, I heard a voice whisper, "Your turn to hide." Third story, Whispers of the Rusted Swing. I grew up in a quiet town in Indiana, the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and everyone knows everyone's business. But there's a playground at the edge of town, near the railroad tracks, that parents always warned us about. They said it was cursed. At night, no one went near it. Rusted swings, creaking metal slides, and splintered wooden benches. It looked abandoned, yet somehow alive. I never believed the stories, not until that night when everything changed. It was late October, just before Halloween. My friends and I, Jessica, Mark, and Tyler, were daring each other to spend the night at the old playground. We were 15, cocky, and convinced we were invincible. The legend was simple: stay past midnight and you'll hear her voice. The old woman of the playground. Some called her Granny May. Others whispered that she wasn't human at all. The story goes that decades ago, a grandmother was watching her granddaughter play on that very swing set. The girl ran into the street chasing a ball, and a truck hit her. The grandmother blamed herself, and a week later, they found her hanging from the swing with a jump rope. Ever since, people said she comes back looking for children or anyone foolish enough to be there after midnight. We got there around 11. The wind was sharp, carrying dead leaves that scraped across the cracked pavement. The sky was moonless. Even the railroad seemed silent. The swings moved on their own, squealing as if pushed by invisible hands. "Creepy as hell," Mark muttered, lighting a cigarette. His lighter flickered nervously. "Don't tell me you're scared," Jessica teased, but her voice shook. I tried to laugh it off, but something felt wrong. The air was thick, heavy, the kind of quiet that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. We sat on the splintered bench, waiting. Midnight came. Nothing. Just the wind. Then, a voice, soft, cracking. "Have you seen my baby?" We froze. Jessica's eyes widened. Tyler whispered, "What the hell was that? Have you seen my baby?" Louder now, closer. A figure shuffled out of the shadows, an old woman, thin, stooped, her gray hair matted and wild. Her dress was stained, torn, her bare feet scraped the gravel, and in her hands, I swear to God, she held a broken doll with one eye missing. "Have you seen my baby?" she rasped again, stepping closer. "Holy shit," Mark hissed, dropping his cigarette. "This isn't funny." But no one was laughing. We stood, backing away. She followed. "Please, help me find her." Her voice cracked into a wail, unnatural and high-pitched like metal scraping glass. The swings behind her began to move violently, screeching as if shoved by unseen hands. The slide rattled. The merry-go-round spun in slow, deliberate circles. Jessica screamed. We ran. But the playground didn't end. I don't mean it felt endless. Shit, I mean it physically did not end. We ran past the swings, the slide, the benches, but when we looked up, we were back where we started. The old woman stood in front of us, smiling now, her teeth blackened stumps. "You can't leave," she whispered. "Not without my baby." Mark lunged at her, shoving her aside. She didn't fall. She hovered, inches above the ground, her head snapping unnaturally toward him with a sickening crack. He screamed, clutching his ears. Blood poured from them. Invisible hands dragged him backward into the spinning merry-go-round. When it stopped, he was gone. Jessica was sobbing. Tyler grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the fence. We climbed, or tried to. The second my hand touched the metal, it burned like fire. I screamed and let go. The old woman was closer now, her face inches from mine. Her eyes were hollow sockets. "Help me find my baby." Jessica ran. Tyler followed. I stayed frozen. Their screams echoed, then cut off. Silence. When I turned, she was holding something new. A small, lifeless body. A child. Its face was rotted, eyes missing, but wearing Jessica's hoodie. I bolted. I don't remember how, but suddenly I was outside the playground, on the road. Everything was quiet, empty. Police found nothing. No bodies, no blood. They said my friends must have run away, but I know the truth. I hear them at night. The creaking swings, the scraping slide, the whispers asking for her baby. Last week, I drove past the playground again. The swings were moving. There were 4 of them, and every single one was occupied. I never thought the smell of rusted swings and freshly cut grass could haunt me, but every time I close my eyes, I hear the creak of chains swaying in the wind. My name is Daniel. I grew up in a quiet town called Willow Creek, somewhere tucked away in the middle of Ohio. We had one playground, one small park wedged between the railroad tracks and an abandoned textile mill. Everyone said it was safe. They were wrong. It started on a late summer evening when I was 10. The air was heavy, sticky with humidity, and the sound of cicadas drowned everything. I was on the monkey bars with my best friend Tyler when I first noticed him. A man, standing at the tree line, perfectly still. He wore a baseball cap pulled low over his face and a faded flannel shirt. He didn't move, didn't blink. He just watched us. At first, I thought maybe he was someone's dad waiting for his kid, but none of the parents seemed to notice him. None of the kids did either, except me. Over the next few weeks, I saw him again, always at dusk, always by the trees, never closer. Sometimes I'd glance over and he'd be gone. Sometimes I'd look away for a second and see him a little nearer than before. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? The town was too small for monsters. Then, kids started disappearing. The first was a girl named Molly. She lived 2 streets over from me, last seen riding her bike past the park. Then Ethan, then Claire. Each one vanished without a trace. The police set up curfews, posted flyers, even combed the woods. Nothing. My mom stopped letting me out after dark, but by then it didn't matter. I couldn't sleep anyway. The nightmares kept me awake. In them, I heard whispers. They came from beyond the playground fence. Faint, childlike voices calling my name, begging for help. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, convinced they were real. One night, I decided to find out. I snuck out while my parents slept. The moon was full, casting pale light over the empty park. The swings swayed gently, though there was no wind. The seesaw creaked. I crept toward the fence, every step heavier than the last, and then I heard it. "Daniel, help us." The voice was soft, broken, familiar. Tyler. I climbed over the fence and followed the sound into the woods. Branches snapped under my feet, shadows shifting like they were alive. The whispering grew louder, overlapping, dozens of voices crying at once. I stumbled into a clearing and froze. There, half buried in the dirt, were toys, dolls, action figures, bikes rusted and bent, and scattered among them, bones, small bones. He stepped out from behind a tree. The man. Up close, he looked wrong. His skin was pale, stretched tight over his skull. His eyes were wide, unblinking, gleaming in the moonlight. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. In his hand, he held something that made my stomach drop, a piece of cloth. Tyler's shirt. "Looking for your friends?" His voice was low, rasping, almost playful. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. He stepped closer. "They're still here. Can't you hear them?" The whispers rose into a wail. I clutched my ears, but it didn't stop. The voices begged me to run, begged me to help, begged me not to look. But I looked. Behind him was a pit, deep, dark, and inside faces. Pale, hollow-eyed faces of every missing kid, their mouths open in silent screams. Their tiny hands clawed at the dirt walls, reaching for me. I ran. Branches tore at my skin as I sprinted through the woods. The man's footsteps thundered behind me, closer and closer. I could hear him laughing, a shrill, jagged sound that cut through the night. I burst through the fence and collapsed onto the playground sand, gasping for air. The laughter stopped. Silence. I turned. He was gone. The police never believed me. They searched the woods, found nothing. No pit, no bones, no man. Tyler's parents moved away. Molly's family too. The flyers faded on telephone poles, the curfew lifted. People forgot. But I didn't. I grew up, moved to the city, tried to leave Willow Creek behind. But every time I hear children laughing, every time I pass a park, I remember. Last week, I got a call from my mom. Another kid's gone missing. Same playground. I swore I'd never go back. But here I am, standing at the tree line. The swings are swaying again. The whispers are louder than ever. And tonight, I'm not the only one listening. Fifth story, whispers beneath the playground lights. I remember the first time I saw them. It was late October, the kind of cold night where the wind carried dry leaves like whispers across the cracked asphalt. I had been walking home from a late shift at the diner in Hollow Creek, a small town in rural Pennsylvania where nothing ever seemed to happen. The shortcut I took cut straight through the old community playground, the one everyone said was haunted, but no one ever really believed. Until that night. The playground was empty, or so I thought. The swings creaked in the wind, metal chains groaning softly. The lamppost that flickered above the slide bathed everything in a sickly yellow light. That's when I noticed them, a man and a woman standing perfectly still at opposite ends of the playground. Their faces were shadowed, but I could see enough to know something wasn't right. The man wore a black suit that looked decades out of place, his hands hanging stiffly at his sides. The woman wore a pale blue dress, torn at the hem, her hair covering most of her face. Neither of them moved. Neither of them blinked. I tried to walk past, fast but casual, heart pounding in my throat. That's when I heard it, a soft giggle, high-pitched and childish, coming from the sandbox. My eyes snapped toward the sound, but the sandbox was empty. When I turned back, they were closer. The man stood directly in front of the slide now, head tilted, as if studying me. The woman had drifted toward the swings, her fingers brushing the rusty chains. I froze. "Do you hear them?" the woman whispered, voice cracking like dry wood. I didn't answer. My feet wouldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The man smiled, wide, too wide, teeth perfectly white but unnaturally sharp. "They're still playing!" he screamed suddenly, voice echoing through the empty park. I ran. I didn't look back until I reached my apartment 2 blocks away. By the time I slammed the door behind me, my hands were shaking so violently I could barely turn the lock. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept hearing faint laughter outside my window, soft knocking on the glass. Every time I looked, there was nothing there. For days, I tried to convince myself I imagined it. Work, stress, exhaustion, anything to rationalize what I saw. But the more I ignored it, the more they appeared. On my way to work at the grocery store parking lot, standing outside the diner as I closed up at midnight. Always watching, always smiling. I told my friend Amy about them. She laughed it off, said I needed rest. So when she offered to walk with me past the playground one night, I didn't hesitate. I wanted someone else to see them, to prove I wasn't losing my mind. The night was colder, the wind louder. The playground looked abandoned, but I knew better. We stepped inside the chain-link fence. That's when the air changed. Heavy, electric, like before a thunderstorm. Amy grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin. "Do you see them?" I whispered. Amy nodded slowly. "Yeah, who are they?" The man and woman stood exactly where I first saw them, motionless. The woman's hair parted slightly, revealing a hollow black socket where her eye should have been. Amy gasped. The man tilted his head, twitching violently like a broken puppet. "Let's go," Amy muttered. "Now." We turned to leave, but the gate we entered through was gone. The fence stretched endlessly in every direction, twisting in the dim light. Panic clawed up my throat. The childish giggles started again, louder this time, overlapping, dozens of voices. Small shadows darted between the swings, around the slide, crawling up the jungle gym. Children. Or what used to be children. Their faces were pale, eyes empty, mouths wide with silent screams. The woman moved first. One moment she was at the swings, the next she was inches from Amy's face. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide, jaw snapping as if unhinged. A shrill wail erupted, shattering the silence. The man lunged toward me, arms elongated, fingers bending backward like claws. We ran toward the center of the playground, surrounded. The shadows of children circled us, chanting something I couldn't understand. The words burned in my ears, made my nose bleed. Amy tripped, falling hard onto the asphalt. I grabbed her arm, but something pulled her away, dragged her screaming into the darkness under the slide. I didn't follow. I ran. I don't remember how I escaped. One moment I was surrounded, the next I was outside the fence, gasping for air, bleeding from my ears. Amy was gone. The police never found her. They searched the playground, the surrounding woods, the entire town. No trace. I told them what I saw. They didn't believe me. But every night since, I've heard the laughter. Sometimes I see them, the man and woman, standing outside my apartment building. They never move. They never knock. But every time I blink, they're closer. Last night, I woke to find them in my living room. They were smiling. And behind them, dozens of pale, eyeless children whispered my name in unison.